Hello, BookTube. As I mentioned in a couple of recent videos, I am in the midst of a fairly extensive project of home construction or reconstruction or destruction that's occasioned tarps everywhere, giant pieces of equipment everywhere, cords and wiring hanging from the ceilings and stretching across the floors, piles of dirt and dust and debris everywhere. And that's made filming a little bit difficult. I missed a couple of days last week, which elicited dozens and dozens of emails from my imaginary booktube friends, uh, pointing out that although they're sympathetic with my construction woes, they still want to hear from me. This is very touching. I mentioned yesterday that I think I am coming up with workarounds that might allow me to make at least a couple of videos a day. And I'm trying that out now, but I want to give a little warning that that is going to involve, experiments, and some experiments don't go well. Will there be a noticeable hum in the background, for instance, if I need to run the AC unit in a space that isn't ventilated in order to make it bearable for my little bean who's right off camera but is right here, insists on being right here? That's another concession on your part, is that you won't be seeing Frida unless you look at my super sexy Instagram where she appears quite often. We shall see if this arrangement doesn't work. When the work of my construction is going to double and maybe even triple next week. If it doesn't work during those conditions, I'll have to figure out something else. I don't know what that will be, but that reality of having home construction that's just ongoing, where you're trying to put a smile on it, but you've got people tramping in your house and you don't want them to be there, and the expenses are just going up and up, and all of that, all the stuff that goes along with that. That reality, in addition to needing workarounds for filming, also creates a bit of self-pity. and so I felt this morning that I should go to the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston. I'm not able to go during the week when leaving would involve. I can't bring Frida with me to the Brattle, so I would have to leave her here. And I don't want to leave her here if heavy industrial machinery is going on around her, if there are holes in the floor. I'm not going to trust strangers, workers, to watch out for her, so I have to stay with her. So today was an option. It was an opportunity that I doubt I'll get next week. And the Brattle is a used bookstore in the heart of Boston, and I love it there. I don't usually go on the weekends because it's mobbed with people, and I don't usually go as late as I went today. I'm usually there first thing in the morning, again, because later than that, it tends to be mobbed with people. The aisles in the Brattle are not all that wide, and in addition to that, the Brattle has a sale lot outdoors. Next to the building, there's a gigantic lot with thousands of sale books in it. And that gets pretty crowded too. And not only that, but unlike indoors, unlike the aisles inside the shop, the outdoor sale lot tends to elicit the very worst behavior of people who seem not to be aware, thanks to the cell phone generation, they seem not to be aware that they inhabit this world with other people. They're just in a completely impenetrable force field cocoon the whole time, and are rudely, eye-blinkingly astonished when it's made apparent to them that there are other people in the world. And that can make it difficult when you're looking at the carts, right? I mean, I love going to the Brattle, but it is tedious to get there. So I always tell myself, and sometimes I have to tell other people, other adults who really shouldn't have to hear it, that I didn't come all this way to avoid a cart because you're leaning against it reading just for the fun of it. That's not how this works. You're blocking something that other people want to see, so kindly don't. I don't usually have to deal with any of that if I'm at the Brattle on a weekday at the first thing in the morning, but I had to deal with a bit of it today, but it was worth it. It was totally worth it. I had other errands to run as well, but that alone would have been enough to sort of shake out the cobwebs of home construction. So I got a pile of books. I want to show you what I got, starting with Tudor fiction, specifically a Tudor historical murder mystery that I've never heard of before. This is by Iris Collier. It's called Day of Wrath. There's Henry VIII in the doorway there from the Holbein portrait, and there's a dead body in the background. Does Henry know? Did he do it? This is all about a time frame. This is a murder mystery with a tight time frame. Nicholas Peveril returns to his manor house in Sussex after visiting King Henry VIII at court and finds that his loyal steward has been murdered. strangled and thrown from the manor house tower. Nicholas immediately decides to launch an investigation. But Henry VIII has made an untimely announcement that he intends to visit Peveril Manor on his way to Portsmouth in just a few days. And the murder that starts, the plot that Peveril starts to uncover looks like it's aimed at the king. So he has to solve the problem and figure out who's involved with it in just a couple of days before the king gets there. So that sounds like fun. I don't know, when did this come out? 2001. So I don't know how I missed it, but I think I did. I don't recall this at all. And I'm always in the mood for a murder mystery, even though March Mystery Madness is not until March, right? Even though that's true. March Mystery Madness isn't for quite some time. And we're hip deep in June on the Range, which is a totally different booktube event. Then this next book is it's got a dust jacket. That's the reason that I grabbed it. The dust jacket's in a little bit of ratty shape, but I'll do what I can with it. I thought it was hilarious. Shawn Standfast made a video just the other day about his method of protecting books. A very, very good video. If I remember to, I'll leave a link to it down below, where he demonstrates how to use the kind of plastic library dust jacket protector that you can order in bulk and just keep for your books. And he takes you through, demonstrates it, how to do that, how to put that Mylar cover or whatever it is. I'm pretty sure it's not Mylar. I'm pretty sure that Mylar is not archival. He demonstrates how to fit that onto a book and all the little techniques that he has picked up from doing it countless times. And at a couple of points in that video, he stresses in that Orson Welles voice of his that you must not use tape. Do not use tape. It's very bad for the book. It pulls at the dust jacket. It dries up and has to be flaked off anyway. It isn't permanent anyway. Very much don't use tape. And I could swear I felt like he wanted to say my name when he was saying that. Because I myself years ago made videos about how I reinforce dust jackets using tape. Now, those videos were never meant. I never claimed at all that was any kind of archival or historically oriented way to reinforce a dust jacket. I claimed it only as something that is a stopgap measure for a book you don't plan to resell. Or that's going to get thrown in the garbage if you do resell it. I mean, I know from firsthand experience how many books end up in the dumpster at the Brattle. They go all the way through the sale lot and end up in the dumpster. I know that perfectly well. Nevertheless, the point was well taken. I thought when I was watching the video, well, this would work if you don't get many books. If you go to the Brattle and get 15 books at a shot, you're going to run out of those things pretty quick. Maybe I should still try it, though. I don't know what I'll do. Maybe I'll try it with this book. Maybe I'll make one purchase online of those things and see how usable they are, how long a roll lasts me. But this is a famous book. This is Newton Arvind's literary biography of Herman Melville. That I've never quite seen it with a dust jacket before. The dust jacket's not in all that great shape, but either I can fix it or I can get some sort of plastic covering to prevent it from any further damage. Newton Arvind had written at least one other book before he wrote this one. I think it was on Hawthorne. But this sort of shot him to fame. This people noticed this book and paid attention to how good it was, how insightful it was. And it had ancillary fame when Newton Arvind became the source of notoriety in his own life, in his personal life. His apartment was raided for very mildly sexual pictures of men by the kind of ultra-Christian witch-hunting censorious mind frame that is now coming back into American society. It was gone for a long time, for half a century or more. Now it's coming back. You can't right now be arrested or drummed out of your job or sidelined from your committees for having what those men who come into your apartment consider to be indecent material because of Christianity. There's no other reason to consider it. It's just because it's a religious thing, and that time is coming again when you will have to be acceptable to the Taliban. It wasn't true for a long time, but it was true in Newton Arvind's day, and there's some debate as to whether or not once the pressure was put on him, he named names. But he was the subject of a book. The whole scandal was the subject of a book called The Scarlet Professor that I strongly recommend. But I also recommend his book on Melville. And Hawthorne and a bunch of other people. I will gladly reread this. I don't know what I'll do with the shape that it's in. I'm so tempted to just reinforce the paper dust jacket. No one's going to have this book after me. Or is the whole point that I don't know that? And that every person who owned one of these books thought that same thing? I don't know. I don't know. I think there's just a touch of vainglory in protecting a book so that it's usable for 150 years when you have 10 years left at most to be around. I don't know. I'll have to look into those plastic coverings. I'll ask Shawn what the details are, how to order them, and maybe order some for myself. This next one is a famous figure from history. And I've had two biographies of this person. One was 100 years old. One was just a few years old. This one is in between. This is 1977. This is a biography of Bess of Hardwick. It's by David Durant, and it has a bookmark in it from, I guess, its original purchase. This is from House of Our Own in Philadelphia. Is that still there? You people in Philadelphia? Is that still a going concern in Philadelphia? But this is a story of an exceedingly rich woman in the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, who married up. She just kept marrying up through one husband after another, all of whom died, and left her everything. She had a remarkable head for business, remarkable instinct for hiring workers and firing workers, and as a result, she became, mind-staggeringly wealthy at a time when Queen Elizabeth didn't so much mind the so-called overmighty subject. Other Tudors would very much have minded if they'd had Bess of Hardwick in their line of sight, in satellite to their court. Elizabeth did her best to give Bess of Hardwick expenses, including an expense through one of her husbands of housing Mary Queen of Scots, which was, eye-watering. But I remember those two biographies. One, the more recent biography is just from 10 or 15 years ago, and then I got one at the Brattle years and years and years ago that was a Victorian biography of Bess of Hardwick, and that it had been an ex-Moody's copy. It had the Moody's sticker right in it. Some of you Jane Austen fans and whatnot will know what that means. It was so cool. It's the only book I've ever had that had a Moody's sticker in it. But I don't know this book, and I'm always happy to read multiple biographies of anybody. Then this next one is an example of something. The Brattle actually gave me two examples. One of the things that you can do at the Brattle, for me, I go through a lot of books. I get a lot of books, and I go through a lot of them. And one of the things the Brattle can do for me is give me a second chance at a book. I guess I can do that for anybody, where you read something and your initial reaction, maybe even a week or a month later, your initial reaction is, well, that was good, but it's nothing special. I can certainly get rid of it. I can discard it to a charity shop or a little free library or a friend or whatever, and I won't miss it. I won't think about it again. And then you do end up thinking about it, and you realize that that element of time is a viable element in assessing a book, and that if you didn't take that into account, and we can't, right? We can't take that into account, or we'd all be up to our eyeballs in books. I would be anyway. So I can't always take that element. I can't look at a book and say, all right, well, here's how I'm judging it in June. But I can't get rid of it because I don't know how I'll be judging it in November. I don't know how much I'll be remembering it in November. I can't do that. Which means that I have regrets. And sometimes I have some bookish regrets. And one of the things that Brattle does so well, because their turnover is so immense, is give me second chances at books, where I'll be looking at the carts and I'll think, I shouldn't have got rid of that. Now I saw today on those sale carts when I wasn't dealing, with three people having a Vassar class reunion while blocking 10 shelves of books. When I wasn't dealing with that, I saw today probably 100, maybe 200, maybe more than that, books that I have had at one point or another, and I was not even tempted to reach out and touch them, much less take them into the armload of books that I was eventually accumulating. I wasn't even tempted. But some books, you're tempted. And this first one is an example of that. There were two examples today. This is by Ian Black, and it is Enemies and Neighbors. I think we probably saw this on this channel. It's a fantastic study of Arabs and Jews. When did this come out? 2017. We could easily have seen this on this channel. I read it. I reviewed it anonymously. And I loved it. I really thought it was one. I mean, I've read a million books on this subject. I thought this was one of the most insightful and sweeping looks at the subject from the very beginning, from Sykes-Picot all the way to the present day. And I got rid of it. I don't even remember how I got rid of it. Did I send it to one of you back in 2017? Or did I don't remember how it is, but the minute I saw it, I thought, oh, well, you want that. You want that. You want to reread it. But you haven't stopped thinking about it. There's a little part of my brain that hasn't stopped thinking about it. And that's true for one other book on here. But first we have a pretty paperback edition of a book that I have in hardcover that I don't need in hardcover. I don't consult it quite enough to have it in hardcover. And it's this. It's Michael Dirda's book, Bound to Please. Which are the grandiose subtitle of an extraordinary one-volume literary education when all it is a big collection of his book reviews that he groups. I mean, he gives the usual self-serving introduction about how really this was all part of some grand plan. It isn't. He doesn't really stress it that much, but plenty of people do. Plenty of people in my profession do when it comes time for them to create a book of their collected reviews, because you hate to see them just gone. You hate to see the waste of it. Right, that one day they're a vital review that everybody's quoting, and literally the next week they're wrapping fish or lying to the bottom of the birdcage. You hate that. So reviewers tend to want to bring their reviews together. I would certainly like to do that. In fact, there's more call practically for me to do it than for Dirda to do it, because anybody who's read the Washington Post Book World, or the Washington Post just in general, will have encountered his book reviews over the years. He hardly strays. Or there was a long decade where he hardly strayed at all. Whereas I'm all over creation. I would be doing, as many of you have pointed out, I would be doing readers a service to collect all of those reviews, because otherwise they're going to miss half of them. I don't have, until I sort of cozied up with the Christian Science Monitor, I didn't really have a central place other than my own place, Open Letters. But that's what this is. This is, I'm not downplaying how good a lot of these pieces are. A lot of them are very, very good. But they aren't meant to be an education. They are just book reviews. And he does everybody in here. I remember the first part, it's segmented into parts. Old masters, professionals at work, visionaries and moralists, we moderns, serious entertainers. And in the old masters, he has Herodotus and the Bible and Arabian Nights, but he also has Umberto Eco. And when I saw that, I thought of Jason Harrigan. I thought that would please him, wouldn't it? But I don't need, this will be fine for me. I don't need the hardcover of this. Then this next one, I have praised this author before. He's a terrific writer, but oddly enough, or maybe not for this channel, I've praised his nonfiction. When he was a hugely successful, best-selling fiction writer in his own day, or maybe 10 years after his prime, if you'd have mentioned his name, no one would have mentioned nonfiction. No one would have done that. They would have mentioned half a dozen novels that sold like the Dickens, and a couple of novels that sold in the millions of copies at a time when that meant something. The author is Thomas Costain, the author of a whole series of books on the history of England that are really good. They are really, really good. And he wrote the Silver Chalice, historical novel about the Christ, and a whole bunch of other things too. And I found one today that I haven't read in a bazillion years. And I found it in a beautiful hardcover with one of those plastic coverings over this thing. So it's another vote for these plastic coverings. And this is the tontine, which is a term for a communal agreement, where the agreement devolves to each member as a member dies or leaves the agreement until there's only one left. It's most famously, in modern times, most famously lampooned in The Simpsons, with Grandpa Simpson and Mr. Burns being the last surviving members of an ancient World War I tontine. But this, when I saw this, I grabbed it, I put it in, you're building an arm of books. Just, you don't leave books behind. You're not going to go back for them. You're not going to remember where they are, and someone's going to grab them while you're looking at another card. So you have to grab everything that's even remotely interesting. And so I grabbed it, and I didn't even look in it. I thought, oh, well, this is $1, and I haven't read the tontine in forever, and I really want to. Now that I think about it, I'd be happy to re-explore Costain's fiction. I know his nonfiction so well. But while I was walking around, I was in part of my mind was thinking, well, the Tontine when it first came out had great illustrations. It was a great illustrated novel. Not most novels aren't. And it turns out this one is. This one has the illustrations all throughout here, which is terrific, absolutely terrific. So this, I don't know. I don't have. I don't have the skill that Shawn or Jason or Mark Richardson have. I don't have the skill to know whether or not what this is, whether or not it's a first edition or anything like that. But it has the original illustrations. It's in perfect condition, so it's prime for a rereading. Costain's fiction, just in general. There's probably a couple of other books there, but this one jumped out at me. Then this next one is the second example of a Second Chance at the Brattle, where it's a book from comparatively recent memory. I'm pretty sure we hauled this on this channel years ago. When did this come out? 2018. So yeah, we probably saw this on this channel. This is by Jamal Majoub, and it's called A Line in the River, with an embossed cover there. It's sort of a potted history, travel log, tempo of the people type book about the city of Khartoum. And it came at me totally out of the blue when I first got it back in 4 years ago. I hadn't expected it. It came to me totally out of the blue, and I wasn't really thinking much of it. I wasn't thinking it would be much, but I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I think it made one of my end of year lists. Why I got rid of it, I have no idea. Maybe I sent it to one of you. It was when this channel was active, so maybe I did. But I got a chance. Again, the Brattle gave me a second chance, a chance to have it in my collection, a chance to reread it. This next one, bit of a literary curiosity. I had to grab it. Again, like I mentioned with Bess of Hardwood, I don't mind if I have multiple biographies of the same person. Maybe that's a sign of a mental disorder, but if so, I'm not alone. I'm in a too small a number on BookTube, but I'm not alone. I know that. So I have what I consider to be the best biography of this writer, but I grabbed another one, especially since the book itself has such a colorful history. This is Lord Birkenhead's biography of Rudyard Kipling. He mentions right there on the cover the long suppressed biography. He was given full, unfettered access by the Kipling estate and by Kipling's literary executor to look at all kinds of original documents. He did a huge amount of work for this book, trekking everywhere, talking to virtually everyone at the time who was still alive in the 1950s who knew Rudyard Kipling and could maybe shed some light on this, that, or the other thing. And he worked on it for a long time too. It's a work of hard, brittle eloquence. Nothing scandalous or unfair about it, but when that literary executor saw the text, she said no, I refuse this. You can't publish this. And it just sat. The whole literary world talked about it for decades. I wonder what Birkenhead says about this, but it wasn't until 20-something years later that it came into print. Lord Birkenhead did not live to see it in print. And there's a mystery as to why. I haven't read this since the 1970s, so I'll read it again in light of all that I know about the case since then. But I don't think anyone's ever come up with a definitive reason why this was suppressed. I'll see if any new theories come to mind, and I'm always up for a Kipling biography, even though politics has completely torpedoed him as a writer. So he's not taught, he's not anthologized, he's not read for pleasure by the right people, by the right set, by the blue checkmark censors that we've given power over our lives. So nothing productive will come of it. It's not like, but I don't need anything productive to come of it. It's a fascinating life, a lot of which takes place up in Vermont. So we'll see. Maybe the light will dawn this time. Maybe I'll figure out why. Maybe when I'm reading it, I'll figure out what bothered the Kipling literary estate that caused her not to want to run it. Then this next one is a double. The Brattle is so cheap. The books out there in the sale lot are so cheap. The only way you'll really run up your bill is if you go inside, which I did because eventually I had to go in and talk to the staff and also leave for the day. But I found a double. It's in rough shape, but maybe I was thinking it was $1. Maybe I can use it as what inveterate book collectors sometimes refer to as a reading copy. And that's this. It's edited by Thomas Godfrey, and it's the English Country House Mysteries, English Country House Murders. This is by the Mysterious Press, and it did really good business for them. The hardcover, the mass market paperback sold like griddle cakes, and it stayed around for a long time. If you worked in a bookstore, this came out in the 1980s, I think, 1989. If you worked in a bookstore, you were forever restocking this. You were forever getting it. Customers were forever buying it. It's just a winning anthology, a really winning anthology of murder mysteries set in country houses, which is natural, right? If a country house is, I don't know how many of you are familiar with them. English country houses tend to be very far away from even the village. Don't let Longbourn fool you in Pride and Prejudice. A lot of times it's a hike to get even to the village, and the village is just one street with a few houses on it. There might be train lines, but if you go back to before the train started penetrating into the countryside of England, an English country house, you would go there, and if a murder happened there, you were basically on your own, which makes it an ideal setting for murder mysteries. And there's hardly a bad one in this book. Now, I have a copy. Now I'm wondering here if it's actually visible behind me. I bet it is. I bet it is. Yes, it is. Can we do this? It's right there. It's that white book right there with the black block on the bottom of the spine. So I do already have a copy of this, and it's in better condition than this one. But I grabbed it anyway, just to deprive some poor orphan of the fun of finding it for $1 at the Brattle, and also because maybe it can be a reading copy. Then this next one, another perfect example of something you can do at the Brattle sale lot that you can't really do in most used bookstores. You can take a totally blind flyer on a book because it's $1 or $3 or $5. That's not a lot of money, even in the aggregate. So you can take a total leap on a book without knowing anything about it at all. I found this copy. I was browsing around. I found a copy of this with a battered dust jacket and a lot of sun damage. And I pulled it off the card anyway. And I looked at it and thought, that sounds kind of interesting. But I put it back. And then mere minutes later, the Brattle gods showed me a second copy in perfect condition with a library acetate cover. So maybe the subtext of this entire Brattle trip is that I need to get some of those plastic coverings and give it a try. Look, I can put my first one on a book while watching Shawn's videos so that I know that I'm doing it right. But I've never heard of this thing. This is it's by Adela Rogers St. John's, and it's called Final Verdict. See, and this one doesn't look anything like the other cover that was out there. And this is the daughter of Earl Rogers, the greatest trial lawyer, tells the poignant story of his controversial life. Apparently, get Rogers to defend you was the best advice an accused criminal could have. I know nothing about this story at all. Nothing about the story of the man. Nothing about his famous courtroom appearances. I'm sure that his name is cropped up in biographies of, for instance, Clarence Darrow. But I never put two and two together. I never really thought about it. And here's a whole book about him by his daughter. So, great big thing. I can't wait to get to it. Total shot in the dark. And then the last items that I got are a little disturbing because they're the kind of thing you would see on Michael K. Vaughan's channel. Does this mean that I'm slowly metamorphosing into Michael K. Vaughan? That's a disturbing prospect, isn't it? They're great, big, beautiful things, though. I'm sure he has them. They're done by Dark Horse, which once upon a time had the publishing rights to the Conan properties. And they are Dark Horse books reprinting Conan comic books from Marvel, from when Marvel had the copyright to Conan. That's just how copyright works. It goes with the copyright holder, not with the company. And I'd never seen these things before. The minute I saw them, I realized I want them. They did 2 volumes of the complete Barry Windsor Smith artwork on Conan in full color, with these rather lovely, fake leathery type things, the inset covers there. Very nicely done. Barry Windsor Smith was the first artist on Marvel's first run on Conan the Barbarian. And in Volume 1, quite a bit of his, let me get you an example here. Quite a bit of his artwork is, let's see here. Quite a bit of his artwork is Kirby-esque. Blocky characters, lots and lots of action and motion lines, that sort of thing. Whereas the more comfortable he got and the more fans loved his work, the more intricate it became. so that it was. There's the example. Here's the adventure where Conan teams up with Elric. How that worked. But it stops being quite so Kirby-esque and starts becoming far more uh, detailed. Now, part of that had to do with really good inker, right? Look at, for instance, this panel here. That's not anything that Kirby could do or would want to do. But that is immediately recognizable as Barry Windsor Smith, and there's a lot of the second volume is basically that. I don't think that was an editorial decision. I think if you're going to do Barry Windsor Smith's complete run on Conan in 2 volumes, it's more than likely going to break down that way just by accident. But I had to have these things, even though I usually make fun of Michael for his gigantic library of huge hardcover reprints of comics. I realize on some level that it really is the way to go. Digital archives of comics just aren't as satisfying. And the paper reprints aren't as permanent. So I realize there's value in them. There are gigantic hardcover editions, but anyway, I had to grab these. Of course I did. So that is my trip to the Brattle. And I know for sure, I always say when I go to the Brattle, I'm not sure when I'll be back, but I know for sure that I won't be back next week. Because there'll be huge amounts of construction going on here every day, all day long. And I have a little bean who's very inquisitive and completely fearless. And in a circumstance where there are open holes in the floor, that can be dangerous. So I will stick with her the whole time, which means the next time I go to the Brattle, if I do, will be next Saturday, a whole week from now. When maybe I will go, but maybe not. It could be raining. It could be 115 degrees. I could just, not feel like dealing with the Vassar class reunion again. I have no idea. A week? That's an eternity. We could all be dead by then. If I go next Saturday, I will certainly show you what I got. But let's do a Steve pyramid here, starting with, of course, the base is these oversized Conan volumes. Very interested to see. I didn't think about it when I was getting them, but I'm kind of curious now to know if Michael Tavon actually has these. I'm sure that he does. Then Final Verdict, The Life of a Trial Lawyer. Oh, what happened? Oh, baby. Did these fall over? They did. All right, Lord Birkenhead's biography of Rudyard Kipling. Long suppressed. The English Country House Murders. Terrific volume. If you don't have one, you should find it if you like Country House Murders, because they're terrific. A Line in the River, an amazingly moving book about cartoon. Bound to Please by my erstwhile colleague at the Washington Post, Michael Jurda. Enemies and Neighbors, great book about the Arab-Israeli conflict. The Tontine by Thomas Costain. Oh, can I reach these? A slim biography of Bess of Hardwick. A literary biography of Herman Melville. And a Tudor murder mystery that I've never read. So there you go. That is my trip to the Brattle for books that I don't need, but at least there was no construction going on at the Brattle. It was a way for me to express what the 21st century nauseatingly refers to as agency. So I'm going to wallow in these things tomorrow, and then gear up for construction to go nuts, to go turbocharged on Monday. Anyway, I am still going to try to make videos every day, no matter what. This space should be fine. We shall see. There might be a hum if I have to turn the AC unit on, but otherwise, I'm pretty sure that I can talk over that. I'm pretty sure that the camera's microphone will pick me up far more than it picks up a background hum. Hoping that's true. But anyway, I'll figure that out as I go along. So I will wrap this up for now. I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.